Hiya. I wonder where he was. I went to give him his lunch and there was no sign of him.
Yeah, he's down on the set end.
Yeah. He normally has his lunch about 12. So I go out and call for him, and sometimes he just sort of looks up and then bo, 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 bo. No, he's just walking very, very slowly. And the door's open, I'm freezing cold. I said, come on.
I know he does that to me sometimes. I open the door and say, do you want to go home? And he just sits looking out the door.
I don't know. Cats just do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
But if I rattle the bowl, he moves a lot faster. Once I held it up, it's very bright green, and it was done what the guy I held up the bowl. Oh right, okay, it's lunchtime, is it?
He's lovely though.
Well, we feed him first thing in the morning, and then about 12, and then 6 o'clock, and he usually knows the time. You know, he's usually, you know.
Almost why he leaves mine at that time. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He checks his watch and. I mean, I reckon it's something to do with the position of the sun. I mean, they must have their ways of working these things out.
He just makes me, he just sits on that step outside, just waits for me to open the door.
Yeah, sometimes he guards the door, sometimes he guards the gate, and but usually in the afternoon he's buried in the bushes in the back garden.
Yeah, because he comes in full of leaves.
Yeah.
And,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, at least he hasn't brought you any presents yet. He brings you a bird and rips it apart in the living room. You'll probably.
I hope not.
There's one thing about dogs; they don't do that sort of thing, do they?
Oh, no, they don't. No.
But I mean, that's the thing. If we don't feed him, he'll just go out and kill a bird. So we have to. But we don't want to feed him too much because he's starting to get very big. Yeah, well, I mean, I always reckon as long as he can get through the cat flap, he's all right. But he's he's right at the peak of his fluffiness at the moment. So the cold just doesn't bother him at all.
No, it don't. No, if it's raining, he'll sit out there.
Yeah, I mean, the outer fur can resist it's waterproof, like a sheep, you know. But what he loves to do is go out in the rain and then he'll run in and he'll jump on your lap and dry off all over you. Yeah.
Yeah. Right up my front he goes.
Yeah. And then when he's nice and dry, he goes and sits on somebody else.
Yeah, when he's down on the settee, when he gets up, he goes under the little chair.
Alright, yeah. He usually has his places, and then he's got a particular place at the moment in the front room. He's there for hours. And then before that, he was sitting on a chair. And before that, he was in the conservatory. But he has these kind of, phases where that's his place. And then every few weeks it's a different place. Very, very strange. But this is what I like about cats, they're always entertainment.
Yeah.
They're always up to something. They're never kind of sitting around doing nothing.
It makes me laugh how the cats go like that.
Yeah, well, that's how they get the milk from their mums. That's part of if they're hungry, that's how they get their milk from their mums.
When he lays on the blanket, like that.
Because they don't spend very much time with their mums. That's why they're very independent, because they only spend about 6 weeks with their mums. So they then play fight with the other kittens, and then that's it. They're out on their own.
They are independent.
Well, they call them semi-feral.
Yeah.
I mean, most cats could probably fend for themselves if necessary, but I mean, they're only designed to last a couple of years out in the wild. They do, only because we look after them.
Yeah.
I mean, they pick up all sorts of bites and fights and scratches, and this one, Monty's not too bad. He hasn't had a decent fight apart from his tail thing. But previous cat I had, the back and forth from the vet with abscesses and infections from fights. They're very territorial.
I know my niece's cat was over 22 years old.
Yeah, that's very old for a cat.
Yeah.
I mean, they reckon 15 years is a good innings for a cat, but a well looked after cat should last till 20. But what does them in is their kidneys.
Yeah.
And it depends on what, if you feed them the wrong thing, they can their kidneys start to shut down. I mean, the dry food, I give it to very, very occasionally, just a few biscuits, very, very occasionally, because the dry food does their kidneys in if they only eat dry food.
Really?
Because they don't really drink enough water. So I always give him the wet food because I know that he's getting some water with the food. But the dry biscuits, if you feed a cat entirely in dry biscuits, they don't last very long. Because they
I've never got honey, anything like that. She
Yeah.
used to just, I mean, we were lucky we had her 17 years.
Yeah, that's very old for a dog. That's about 100 dog years, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's this 7 years.
Yeah,
Cats are about 5, isn't it?
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say 15 to 20 years is good cat age. And anything over 20 is very good for a cat. But then once they get over 20, their kidneys start shutting down and they get all sorts of problems because they're not designed to live that long.
See, honey, she went blind.
Yeah.
Deaf, and it got to the point where I was having to lift her up to eat, and I said to Ken, we're being cruel.
Well, it's all to do with quality of life, isn't it? I mean, they're not humans. They don't, they're very different to human beings. I mean, their quality of life is measured by all these things. I mean, if they can get out and they can eat something and they can enjoy themselves a little bit, then fine, they can carry on. But once they can't really do anything, or I mean, my previous cat, he actually went next door and stayed there, and the next door neighbour wasn't feeding him the right food, and eventually he ended up fitting because he had tumours on his liver, he had kidney problems, he had all sorts of things, and of course the neighbour wasn't doing anything to deal with this, so we had to take him to the vet, and it was the last possible moment, really.
That's the trouble. You should never feed anybody else's animals because you don't know whether they're allergic to anything or
Particularly older cats, because my other older cat used to have a special low protein food, and people think, oh, he looks so thin, and so he must be a stray. No, he's thin because he's on a special diet.
I mean, the vet said honey's weight was absolutely marvellous for her age.
Yeah.
Because we never let her get fat.
Well, cats can get diabetes,
Yes, I know.
and dogs are well known for having problems with their joints if they get too fat.
Yeah.
And of course, they won't control it themselves.
No.
They're not gonna turn away food.
Yeah.
We've got to, if we want to keep them going, we've got to be the adults.
As they say, you've got to be cruel to be kind.
Well, it's like parenting, really. You've got to, tough love sometimes. I mean, I don't know how cats get diabetes, but I know that it's not from. It's from eating something other than proper cat food.
It's the same as humans, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realise that cats and dogs get everything that humans get.
They can do, yeah.
Yeah.
Except they don't get the coronavirus. Well, they can get it, but it doesn't affect them very much,
Yeah.
and they don't spread it to humans. Unless you keep pangolins or bats in the garden as well.
God,
Or mink.
this would all clear up.
It will. It'll be over. By the summer it'll be over.
God, I hope so.
I know the thing is, it's all temporary. People, it's always darkest before the dawn and all that sort of stuff. Have you ever been on a really long flight?
Yeah, to Canada.
Yeah. So can you remember anything about it?
Not really.
That's right. Because you're sitting there for 10 hours on a plane, and when you get to the other end, you completely forget about the 10 hours on the plane.
I mean, it was
And it's the same with this. We'll just completely forget about it.
when I got together, because I was all on my own, because Ken don't like flying.
Yeah.
And I was all on my own, and they changed planes at the last minute.
Yeah.
And we went Nationair. There was no film on board. There was nothing.
Yeah.
And for 10 hours, I just sat and
Stared.
looked out the window and read and, God.
But the thing is, as soon as you get off the plane, you completely forget about it.
Yeah.
When I flew to New Zealand once, and it took 26 hours, and I can't remember anything about the flight at all. It's it's just because there was nothing worth remembering.
I mean, when I landed in Victoria, I'd got on a flight then in a little
Yeah.
To Vancouver Island.
Oh, really? Very nice. Yeah. Yeah.
It was lovely.
Yeah. But that's what you remember. You don't remember sitting there staring at the seat in front of you for 10 hours or whatever it is. And it's the same with this. We'll forget about it.
The best flight was from here to Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Where my other sister lives. We went with I forget the flight now.
Doesn't matter.
But all they come around with food and drinks and hot flannels and that was a lovely flight.
Yeah. I've got relatives in Canada, but I've only ever been there once. I went to Montreal once. But we drove. It took forever.
Went to Nova Scotia twice. Went to Vancouver Island and where my other sister lived at the time.
Doesn't matter. My cousin lives in Edmonton in Alberta, which is right in the centre.
Oh, right. A lot of places where the Indians are. Yeah.
First Nations, they call them now.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to call them Indians.
No, I know.
But, yeah, I mean, I'd love to do like the train across Canada.
So would I.
That would be magnificent.
I know, I'd like that as well.
There's a couple of train journeys I'd like to make. There's another one in Switzerland. There's a particular train where they have a special carriage there where you can see it's almost completely glass. It's a special tourist route. So I'd like to do something like that.
Snow and everything.
Yeah. Well, Switzerland is just as nice in the summer. In fact, it's different, but it's equally spectacular. But the good thing about a train is you're in the warm and dry. It's just so spread out. It's so enormous. I mean, we drove for hours and hours to get from Montreal to the American border. I think it was 4 or 5 hours drive. And that was like next door. And then there's another 6 hours to get from the border to. We were staying just south of Albany, Poughkeepsie. And it's beautiful scenery. It's the Hudson Valley. It's fantastic. But there's just so much of it.
They don't think anything of driving that far in Canada, do they?
No.
Their roads are so nice.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's like Australia, you just get used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've driven enormous distance in Australia as well and just get used to it.
I mean, when my sisters came over here, they said the roads look like that.
Yeah. And I mean, if we drive for 3 hours, or I mean, I got relatives in Plymouth and friends down in Devon, and that's 4 hours, 4.5 hours drive. It's like forever. Whereas in Canada, that's next door. It's you would drive 4 hours, do something, and then drive back for 4 hours the same day.
Yeah, because I've got a sister in Cornwall, and
You've got a lot of sisters.
my mum had 8 girls and 1 boy.
Is that right?
Yeah. Sadly, I've lost 3 of them. But the boy was thoroughly spoiled.
Yeah, I'll bet.
He lives in Spain.
Nice and warm there. It's boring, but nice and warm.
Yeah, I've got 3 in Canada, 1 in Cornwall, 1 in Spain, and the other one used to live in London, Coney, and the other one lived in, the other 2 lived in Yarmouth.
Were you from around here originally then, or are you?
I was 7 when we came here. I was born in Stockport.
Oh yeah.
And,
So it's not too far away then.
My dad worked at the Hatfield.
Yeah.
Because he used to have to go all the way from here to Stockport. And then he put in for a council house in Aldight. And that's where we stayed.
Oh.
And we all hated that. We really did. We hated it here.
I find it very convenient. I don't want to retire here, but I want to go to Ireland, but it's very convenient. It's got everything that you could want. But I just don't find it particularly, uplifting environment, It's all the houses are a bit the same, and
Yeah.
you know, there's no kind of oldie worldy or scenery anywhere. It's just
I mean, that you don't know anybody now around here. I mean, at one time I used to know everybody,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, when we moved in, there was only our block.
yeah.
All this was all big muddy fields and
Yeah.
everything. And ours was the first block. And
That was the 70s, wasn't it?
even opposite us, it was all mounds of
Yeah. But that was the 70s, wasn't it?
about 40 odd years we lived
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I suppose you're used to it now, so you wouldn't want to go anywhere else, would you?
Oh, I'd move out tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, I hate it here.
Really?
Yeah, I hate it. Move out
You hate it for 40 years?
He was born and bred here in Old Hatfield, he was.
Oh, okay. But something like that would suit you, wouldn't it? In a nicer place.
Too small.
Yeah.
Oh, they're only tiny.
But there's not much to do in them. There's lots. They're easy to keep
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want one of
warm and all this, don't they?
them. No.
Well, not around here, but somewhere nice, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we did moving down to Caister, where just near my sister. But
Yeah.
10 Hamden Arden.
Caister's the retirement centre of the country, isn't it? But the good thing about it is that everything is there for pensioners.
Yeah.
Even the shops sell stuff that you can't get anymore in the shops around here because only old people want it. And where I used to live, there was a shop that was known for that. They called it the old ladies shop, and they had all these things like, do you remember those Pacamacs and those hats that folded, plastic hats that folded? And that's the only shop ever seen where, you know, recently that you could get those. But my mum had a whole collection
My
of them.
mother-in-law had one.
Yeah. And they're very handy because you keep them in a handbag or whatever, and but nobody wears them anymore.
No.
But this shop was full of them, full of all sorts of stuff like that. It was like part museum, part shop, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But if you go to Caister, all the shops will be like that.
It is nice down there.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's good to. I think it's good to retire somewhere with a lot of other retired people.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to move to Ireland, and I want to go to this sort of touristy part because, you know, there's a lot going on there, and a lot of people retire there for that same reason. You know, there's a lot going on.
I mean, they keep building all these houses, but they don't think of the schools, the doctors, the
Well, they're supposed to.
hospitals, you know.
They're supposed to. I mean, I used to be a councillor, and we used to go through these enormous, planning processes and regional plans and all the rest of it. But in the end, it was just about money, short-term expediency, and they got a developer to build a primary school. But if you can imagine, it was in a plot like this. So there was a busy road on one side and a busy road on the other side, and of course there was nowhere to park.
Yeah.
And people should walk to school. Okay. In that case, what are you going to do? You're going to have the police there arresting people for driving to school.
Yeah.
No. So the whole place was chock-a-block every morning with parents. All the roads around were chock-a-block because the council did a deal with the developer and sold them. They sold the playground from the school. The developer gave them the school, and they sold the playground back to the developer. It's all about money.
I mean, here they shut 4 schools. They shut Delfield, the other one down by the doctor's surgery, Burley, St Albans, and the one right at Hillview. They shut all those down.
They'll have to open up again because the number of kids of school age is going up at the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
But all they do is they just make the schools bigger. They just add on classrooms, put in temporary classrooms and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And most of them are falling apart anyway. But it's just about money.
I mean, St Albans wasn't that old because,
Well, that's been merged with another one, isn't it?
yeah,
Onslow St Aldridge.
Yeah.
But they've got plenty of space there, so they can add extra classrooms.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a teacher, so I was going to be a governor of that school, but in the end they didn't want me. But the thing about having a big school is that they can teach a lot of subjects. A lot of smaller schools, they can't teach so many subjects because they don't have as many teachers. So if you've got like 2,000 kids in a school, it means you can have all sorts of subjects going on, and they've got a lot more choice. So it's a lot better for a more diverse community. You know, a lot of I used to work in Harlow, and they had a Catholic school there which only did about very minimal range of A levels, because they didn't really have enough teachers to make it worth their while teaching all these other subjects. So they had to cut back on languages and science and all these sorts of things. They could only do the bare minimum. Whereas a big school with like 2,000 kids, you can teach anything.
When I was at school, the girls wasn't allowed to do science or woodwork. And I would have loved to have done
And the
that.
boys weren't allowed to do cooking.
No, cooking or needlework.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Them were the days.
Yeah. But some of the teachers in Delfield, the little juniors, oh, they were so vicious.
Yeah.
I hated them.
Yeah. When I was at primary school, we had nuns, and they were awful. They really were horrible.
Yeah.
And you've got to think, well, is this somebody dedicating their life to the service of God? No, this is some evil sadist or whatever who only gets a thrill out of torturing young children. They're horrible.
They loved tormenting the little ones and
Yeah.
whacking them with a shoe, and they were horrible.
A friend of mine went to a Christian Brothers school in Liverpool. He said every single kid in that school at some point was being held out of a window by a teacher who was threatening to throw them out of a window at some point because they misbehaved or whatever it was. Nobody ever did. Nobody ever got thrown out of a window, but they were threatening to do it.
They've only got a slip and they're out.
Well, I think they were pretty good at it. I don't think they ever lost anybody through a window, but they were very good at terrorising the kids. That's all I can say. They're very experienced at that. But I mean, they're not allowed to do all that sort of stuff anymore, thank God.
I mean, they used to throw the rubber in board rubber at you, and
You're not even allowed to use a whistle now. Anyway, I'm getting cold. I need to get cycling, warm myself up. Otherwise, my legs will seize up. Anyway, give my regards to Monty and remind him of his lunch. He's sitting there waiting for him. Morning.